So you think I'm going to say kobolds, but I'm not.
What do you think is the best low-level monster in the Dungeons & Dragons 5e Monster Manual, and why? Logan, what have you got for us?
I have decided to pick one that I think it's overlooked a lot of times. And it's definitely, at least in my games, probably one of the most used monsters in all of the Monster Manual. Out of all the crazy ideas they have, this is still, I think, one of my favorite ones in the whole world. And it is the Goblin. Yes, the humble Goblin with all his floppy green ears and big noses and just general mischief and mayhem. I think that the Goblin is such a fun low-level monster to play, specifically because you really can't run out of ideas for ways to use them. There's kind of that classic, sniveling, like underling for some kind of bugbear, hobgoblin, or bigger goblinoid. Or you could go like tribal if they're out in the jungle. They got tiki masks and they're making little totem poles of goblins and are all shooting poison darts at you. They could be doing guerrilla warfare tactics and be really just pains in the neck and jumping out of trees on your back. Or they just could be just complete idiots, in which case I think is my personal favorite, just to play really dumb goblins that end up setting off more traps on themselves than they do the adventuring parties. For me, it's got to be goblins, hands down.
Josiah, so what would be the best low-level monster out of the Monster Manual?
So not to try to one up or anything, but my choice was actually hobgoblins. For similar but different reasons. I really like hobgoblins, and I use them a lot as well because they can be as threatening as you want them to be, right? Like hobgoblins are super intelligent and really organized, which is a rarity amongst a lot of the lower level monsters when you look like kobolds and orcs and lesser goblins and stuff. So you can have like a band of hobgoblin raiders, for example, and that's like a substantial threat to like a small town or something. But you can also have a hobgoblin like warlord who has gathered all these other hobgoblins, and that's like a CR7 monster, which is that's an end boss for a low level campaign, right? So you can use hobgoblins in that way of just like, okay, we need to go stop these like 7 or 8 hobgoblins that are out here causing trouble. Or it can be like, okay, we need to 7 samurai it up in here and like teach these people how to fight and go on a crusade to take down this one specific hobgoblin who's just like sowing chaos. And they're also smart enough to make allies for higher level games. I think hobgoblins are just very diverse when it comes to monsters that are capable of maybe doing some stuff that your players might not foresee. Intelligent monsters are always super fun to run for that exact reason.
So AJ, what would be the low-level monster you would pick out of the Monster Manual that you think is like one of the best in Dungeons & Dragons 5e?
So you think I'm going to say kobolds, but I'm not. Because kobolds would be a very good answer. Bugbears is a good answer as well. Bugbears have got a lot of uses, particularly bugbear culture. But I'm actually going to say oozes. A non-intelligent, usually, threat that I think is when you're first starting out and playing your low-level campaign. If you're one of the rare DMs that says, right, everybody's starting at first level and the players actually don't lynch you, then you go from fighting vermin and NPCs to your first legit Dungeons & Dragons monsters, which is oozes, I think. You can fit them into a lot of different situations. They're quite variable, very variable. There's lots and lots of different variant oozes across magazines and articles from previous editions and stuff that you can adapt very easily to 5th edition. And the challenge is on the Dungeon Master, I think, in making the ooze stand out and pop out and become the star of the show in an unexpected way that the players weren't prepared for. Like they're expecting green slime, they're expecting gelatinous oozes, but they're not exactly ready for an ochre jelly or something like that they're not really that experienced with. And of course, I create oozes on the fly as I see fit. I see a need for an ooze and there isn't an ooze that fits the category. I make one. Perfect case in point was the delicious pink slime.
So my low-level monster out of the monster manual that I picked, there's a few, but the one I picked that really causes the most trouble for my players is definitely the Jackalware. It's like a challenge rating half, which doesn't really mean anything, but it's got the sleeping gaze, which I've never got to actually work properly. It's never worked, in fact, I don't think, in any of the games I've ever run, but it's got damage immunity to pretty much anything that does slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing non-magical attacks, or doesn't have a silvered weapon. And that's the one response I usually get, unless they are completely unaware of this creature, is the players run away. So for anybody who is interested in low-level monsters and using them in their game, let us know down in the comments what you think is the best Dungeons & Dragons 5e monster at low level out of the monster manual. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.